Hello there, and welcome to What's the Point? A question we should all be asking ourselves, and the podcast by brand architect Bill Ellis that will help you discover, clarify, and live your purpose.
Hi, everybody. Welcome again to What's the Point with another fabulous guest. Today's guest is a friend of mine that I met at a business function workshop about 5 years ago. Suzanne Bird-Harris. How are you? And thank you and welcome to What's the Point?
I am fabulous. Thank you for having me. This is going to be fun. I always love talking to you, Bill.
Well, thank you, and likewise, and it will be fun. If the listeners need a pick me up, this is the show to listen to. So when I said we met at a work function, it was actually a workshop hosted by Chris Brogan on something about small business ownership. And I'll be honest, Suzanne and I were talking a little bit before recording. The best thing that came out of that was my friendship with Suzanne.
Yeah.
And that I very much appreciate and cherish. But let me tell you a little bit about her first. She's an experienced web designer, copywriter, and consultant. And she's a trainer as well. She's based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And for more than 20 years, she's helped hundreds, and I mean multiple hundreds of businesses and nonprofits create effective websites and compelling marketing that works. So that is what you do.
That is a chunk of what I do, yes. That's the main thing I do.
And what I always say is that's what you do, but it's not who you are. And we're going to get into a little bit more about who you are today. So one of the things I love about Suzanne is regular listeners hear me talk about the purpose principle, and that's if we discover our purpose, it ignites our passion, and that gets us going. But the critical element is persistence, and persistence not only gives us the what I'll call stick-to-itiveness, but it also allows us to grow and evolve and shape the course of our purpose and how we're executing it. And if there's one word that would describe Suzanne perfectly, it's persistence, among many others. So congratulations on that, because it's gotten you where you are today. And you're in a pretty good place, right?
Yeah. I get to do what I love to do for a living and have the schedule freedom. I get to do it when I want to do it. And I look at every day as, hey, here's 24 more hours to spend as I please. And I spend a lot of those 24 hours doing work-related stuff, and a lot of my interests that are not official work are also require this screen and this keyboard. So I spend a lot of time in this office. You can pretty much bet if I'm awake, there's a good shot I'm in here. But it's all good.
Well, based on following you on social media, I would say that's true. But so you've become a very successful business owner, and in a multitude of areas, which we'll get into in a minute. But what I'm impressed by is your start professionally. I mean, you started as a programmer analyst.
Yeah.
And then eventually you became a data processing manager. And then
At
you became
a very
an engineer.
young age, actually, too.
Well, as young as you are now, of course, you had to start very, very young. But then you became an engineering systems analyst before you made this move into your own business area. Tell me about that path to being an independent business owner.
Okay, so I accidentally went to programming school.
Did you take a wrong turn?
No, but as a common theme, the men in my life that I have loved and lived with have had huge impacts on my life. And the first one was the catalyst for my career. God bless him. He turned out to be not the one for me, but I went to 5 high schools in 4 years in 3 different states, thanks to our family moving around due to my parents' employment situations. So by the time I got to Tulsa, I was 17. I knew everything. I was fed up with other people making decisions that impacted me in such big ways. And I knew I was ready for the world. So, and it was further cemented by the fact that the lady at the registrar's office for Tulsa Public Schools told my mother in front of me that, "Oh, Mrs. Bird, your daughter actually has one more credit than we require for a diploma, and she hasn't even gone to her senior year yet." And I'm like, yes! And my mother's like, oh. So, Mom loaded me up. She's like, no. Load her up with a full schedule. We need to contain this one. And it was a valiant attempt, but it didn't work. I moved out of my parents' house in the middle of my senior year, moved in with that said boyfriend, and about a year, I graduated, and that summer after graduation, we were sitting around the apartment, and he's like, "You've got to do something besides this managing restaurant thing we're doing. You're too smart to do this the rest of your life." And he's still, I would not be surprised if I tracked him down today. I would not be surprised to find him at 60 something years old in college. He is the perpetual student, and it's one of the things I loved about him. And so one day he came home and he said, "Hey, we're going to programming school." I'm like, "Okay. What's that? Programming what?" "Computers." I'm like, "Haven't seen one of those yet, but okay." So this is early 1983. No, late 1982. I graduated in 82. So, I had never seen, the little town that I came to Tulsa from still had the little punch, ka-ching registers in the grocery store. I'd never seen a computer. And so I'm like, okay, I too love to learn things. And so I really had no interest in programming, but I'm like, man, okay, I don't have anything better to do. And all these years later, that is how I've been able to finance my life. It's opened up. I mean, who knew in 1982 that we'd be having Twitter? Come on. Yeah. So it was really great. So I went to programming school. I was one of 3 women in the whole program. When I got my first job, they'd never had a woman in data processing or accounting. And so I worked there 5 years, and those people, God bless them. That was back when Cyndi Lauper and Madonna were the fashion trends of the world. I showed up to work in crazy hair and black and white polka dotted pants, and they're like, "Oh my word, thank God she's got a brain, because this is something." So I worked there as a programmer for 5 years. Then my boss, the data processing manager, took another job at another company, and I got promoted. And I started a user group in Green Country, Pick Users Group. It was a users group for the operating system that our computers used. I remember when we bought the first PC, it cost like $4,000, and my phone is more powerful than that thing was. So it's been a real adventure, but it was an accident. I had no intention I wanted to be a teacher when I grew up. That's what my plans were. I was going to go to West Virginia Wesleyan, get a teaching degree, and specialize in special education for gifted kids, because as one of those kids back in the 70s, it was kind of like my experience of raising my IEP child in the 90s. This public school system has a load. I get that. And depending on where you live, it does a better or worse job of managing the tasks before it.
So there's, sorry to interrupt, but there's so much in that story, in your story. And when you say you got into programming by accident, a lot of what happens to us along our journey in life are unexpected situations. So is it an accident? Arguably, yes. But what I want to tie together for everyone, and perhaps even you, I'm sure you've thought of this though. You said that originally your belief, your purpose was to be a teacher, and you became a programmer. Well, guess what? Today you're teaching, and you're teaching hundreds of people outside of the quote-unquote school system. And the point I want to make there, everybody, is yes, when we're seeking our purpose, we have to be open to what comes along, to what the opportunities are, and some of them are great, and some of them are just, what the heck have I done this for, and why me? But we have to get out of the why me as fast as we can and look to see what's next and what have we learned from that. So, yeah, the fact that you met this guy so young and got into programming opened a door that you never would have expected, but you were open to what was next.
I'll tell you why that is. I have spent a lot of time over the 57 years I've been breathing, and let me tell you, this started, my first recollection of thoughts like this is when I was 3. Spent a lot of time wrestling with the idea of what is life? What is it supposed to be? Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to be? Those are thoughts that fill my head all the time. And I've always had the biggest sense of curiosity of anybody I know. I have way more than 9 lives. I've proven that. But my favorite question is why? Imagine being my mother. That was fun. But I have wrestled with this idea of purpose my whole life. And the only thing that I have ever felt at my very bone marrow level is curiosity and wanting to know why and how things work. Why are things the way they are? How does this work? Why did you say that way? Why did you do that thing? Why? So if I have a purpose, it is discovery. It is fueled by curiosity. So that has taken me all over the place, all over the map, and very much required. And I think you talked about persistence being a great word to describe me. I've always used stubborn, so they're kissing cousins. But I think persistence in my case is curiosity plus stubbornness equals persistence. And
very, very interesting.
That has driven my life.
Yeah, and I was going to say that persistence and stubborn are not mutually exclusive. That's a false dichotomy. Sometimes persistence requires stubbornness, as you just said. But curiosity, I love that definition. Curiosity plus stubborn equals persistence.
For me, that's how it works for me.
Well, I appreciate that. That's one of the reasons I wanted you for a guest, but I love the definition for people beyond you, like myself. But based on what you've just said about being curious since you were 3 years old, how could I find a better guest for what's the point?
That's the question I've been asking my whole life, Bill.
Well, good. It's a beautiful question. It's certainly not one I came up with, but it's one I love because it can be asked time and time again, and it can be asked behind every answer. So, Mom, I'm going to go live with this guy at whatever age I am, and she'll say, "What's the point?" And you'll say, "Well, because I'm in love and I want my life." Well, what's the point? And it can just go on and on.
Yep.
So you went through all of your programming, and eventually, you now are the owner of your own business. Tell us about what you're doing now.
I build WordPress websites for small businesses and nonprofits, and I've been doing that since 2002 when I got my worst fear. No, my number 2 fear was realized. My number 1 fear has always been having to attend a funeral of one of my children. Don't want to do that. Number two
Understood.
fear was always finding myself without gainful employment with 3 children, a mortgage, and a car payment. Didn't want any part of that nonsense either. But I have always wanted to work for myself. I am, not surprisingly, someone who does not fit in someone else's box very well.
I can testify to that.
Yeah. So I got my wish and I'd had like side businesses all right from the beginning, from 18. Network marketing businesses. I did Mary Kay, so I've always been pursuing a path of self-employment. But like many people, trading the good situation I had with that job in engineering for the great that I could imagine was little more than I was ready to just leap into with 3 kids in tow. I felt very irresponsible entertaining that idea without a solid plan to make sure to guarantee it was going to work. So universe provides, because WorldCom is where I worked in engineering, and WorldCom went under. And so guess what? I had another job. So, but by that time I had been so longing to be in charge of my schedule. I had a 15-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 3-year-old at home as a single mother. So tell me, what office job works with that mess? None. So it was a blessing. And I realized, hey, the software I've been writing in engineering had to be accessible for engineers all around the world. I've been building websites. Hey, I can do that now. So that's what I did. And once I got a taste of being home to manage the circus that was my family, I knew that, I got to figure out how to make this work, because this isn't going to work for me to be absent all day anymore. I don't want to. Not only does it not work, I just don't want to anymore. So 20 years fast forward, here I am, and it still astounds me, Bill, that I've been able to carve a really great living doing things that absolutely fascinate me out of thin air. It's I'm pretty badass when I think about that.
That you are. You are certainly a badass person, a badass woman.
And persistent.
Well, that's part of badassery.
It is.
You will.
You are correct about that.
And frankly, the whole purpose principle is part of badassery. We need to know where we're going. We need to be excited about doing what we're doing, and we need to be able to persist and evolve. So, yeah, that's a perfect description for you. You have been very, I'm going to use the word intuitive, but that may be right, may not be right. So correct me, but it seems as though you've been very intuitive in how to best help people in your work world. And by that I mean you've started a DIY club, which and you've kind of built a community as well as a paid for services avenue, which is your biggest. But tell me about how you came to think of all those different channels for your work.
Well, like everybody, I try to pay attention to what are best practices, and I recognized very quickly that I had 3 groups of people that were paying attention to me. I had business owners who didn't want any part of building a website themselves. They just wanted to have somebody do it. I had people who were not programmers, not web developers, but very tech savvy and very self-starting, and didn't have the patience to entertain a hire Suzanne to build your website. They want it done now. They want to be mucking about in it. They want to do their own thing, but they have this business of their own, so they can't be full-time figuring out how to do what I would do if they hired me. So, but they need help, but not nearly like these folks over here who are like, I don't want any part of it. You handle it.
So guidance rather than execution.
Right. Then there's people in the middle who they're made up of a mix of both extremes. Like I've got people who they're starting their business. They don't have the budget to hire somebody, so they're stuck doing as much as for themselves as they can possibly figure out how to do. And my heart bleeds for them because that's where I was when I started my business. And yeah, I had a leg up in the web development part, but let me tell you what, when you start a business, as you know, you take on every job in the company, even the ones you're not good at. So I knew what it was like to be not good at something that had to be done, and felt very grateful that I could mitigate some of that for people, website and marketing. So those very distinct groups were the catalyst for the DIY Club, because those folks are from the very tech savvy, I want to do it on my own, whether you're available or not group, and a whole bunch of the people from the middle where they're tolerating the DIY until they can afford to hire, or they know enough to be dangerous and they know it, so they want close guidance with someone. So that's what, it's just looking at who I'm serving and what do they need, and matching that to what I'm willing to offer, and how pretzely am I willing to become to meet their needs. And that's once again where curiosity saves my neck, because I don't think if I were not asking why so often about so many things, that I would have recognized that as early as I did, that I had those nuances in those people. So,
well, you've made a real important point there, which is what you said is you were curious, you were open, and you were driven to find out how you can help these people. And that's the key to success, which is, what value do I have and who needs it? And how can I deliver that value to the right people?
Yeah.
If we get to the point of saying, I've got this, what I think, strength, value, asset, and I'm just going to go out there because everybody will want it, because I'm the dude, it's not going to work. So yeah, I think that's a very key point, is to recognize who's looking for the value that you can provide, and then can you adjust your value and how you deliver it to make it a good match,
right,
without being inauthentic to yourself.
Right. Yeah. And I've been blessed to have my business. It's really ironic. I'm a web developer that doesn't really use SEO or digital marketing to grow her business. I am so relational. Big surprise for you, I know. My business has been built almost 95% over the years by referral. And I trust my gut when I talk to someone as to whether I can have a good working relationship with that person. I don't take them through a list of questions or any of that. We talk, and I pay attention to what you mentioned my intuition. I rely heavily on that. And I love the people that I work with. I love the clients that I have and the people they refer to me. And that birds of a feather factor is always in play. So, if you were to refer a client to me, odds are I'd like that client because I like you so much. And it extends to the people because, we like attracts like. So my business, my client roster is full of people I know not only really well, but have become personal friends like yourself over the years, and I love that. When you're going to devote 15 to 18 of your waking hours a day to something, you're going to have to ask a lot of it back. And I'm not doing without great relationships in my life. And
Yeah.
I'm not doing without friends and people that mean something to me. And now, as a result, there's not very many places in the United States that I can't get in my car and drive to and have a couch or a guest room to sleep in. And I love that.
I was just thinking that as you were speaking, that opens up a whole nother channel of conversation about you and your purpose and your passion, and that is, having those people that you connect with and having those people that you have a relationship with, but also that curiosity of yours and your willingness to just hop in the car. Most of your cars have been named through our relationship, me knowing you. And hop in that car and just drive to wherever you're going. So Suzanne, we were talking before we started recording that I didn't think that there was any time that she would just get in her car and go to a single destination, because she would always think, well, there's another relative or friend or client or some combination thereof that I can, if I go another 4 hours out of my way, I can see them. So that curiosity really is at the root of your entire life, not
Pretty
just
much.
your business.
Pretty much. And the ways in which it has shown up in my personal life over the years. Oh man, I've always said if I wanted to write a memoir of my life, first of all, I'd break all the rules because I'd have a hell of a time deciding which piece of my life to include. It'd be, you'd need a dolly to move the book. It'd be so big, and it'd be in the science fiction department, because surely no one woman lived through all that and did all that to herself. But I did. And I have put myself through the ringer in business and in life more than once. But I've figured out for me that what makes me happy, like, it's easy to be who you want to be in a vacuum. It's not so easy to be who you want to be out there in the world, bumping up against other people. So I spend a lot of time thinking about, and it's going to sound crazy, but creating the Suzanne I want to be. That's my most creative endeavor so far. And then I go field test her out in the world and gather data and come back and think some more and think, yeah, that part didn't work, so let's get rid of that. And I approach my life. I use a lot of systems and logic, programming logic, in how I craft my life too. I want to know what works, and always fueled by that why and that curiosity. I'm a strange little duck, but I like me, and it's so good to be able to say that now.
Isn't it? Yeah, so you're strange, you're unique. I wouldn't say you're one of a kind necessarily, but I've not met too many Suzannes in my life. I do love how you described, I think we all can create ourselves to a degree, and that comes under the persistence and the whole evolvement thing. So yeah, there's a definite validity to creating ourselves, and we do that by learning new things, by enhancing skills that we have, by learning skills we don't have, and by trying new things. And they're not all going to work, as you said, but continuing to strive for improvement. Again, Suzanne Bird-Harris - persistence. So back to your memoirs. Should I even ask this? Why don't you share with us just a couple of chapters?
Oh Lord, are you ready for? You know some of these chapters, so you know what you're asking for, I guess. You heard one already. I moved out of my parents' house when I was 17, moved in with my boyfriend who was 7 years older than me, and of course gave my parents mild heart attacks over that. And we were together for 2 or 3 years, and we broke up. And the one additional thing I've always known about me is I wanted to be a mom. I wanted to have children. I've been thinking about that since I was 3 as well. And so here I was born in 64, right in the middle of the bra burning and the women's liberation movement and all that starting and all the confusion. And I have to admit, as the tail end of the baby boomer generation, I have spent a good chunk of my life not knowing which end is up as far as expectations of me by the people in the world. Because depending on what group of people I'm hanging with, they had wildly different expectations of what is appropriate for Suzanne, which, yeah, well, I didn't fit much of that. But anyway, I find myself at like 21. I spent my 21st birthday thinking, all right, chick, you want to have children. Do you want to be married? Turns out, looking back, maybe I think the answer was no, because of 35 years of motherhood, I've only spent, if you mash all the years together where I was coupled up with somebody, it's only 10 years. So, and I do believe we create our lives by our decisions. I also believe we often are asleep at the wheel, at the decision wheel, reacting instead of acting. And I spent a lot of time doing that until I created enough heartburn for myself that I was like, oh, something's got to change. I've been pinned to a wall 4 months pregnant with my life threatened, my husband threatening to take me out because I was such a pain in his ass. And I remember being stuck to that wall by my neck thinking, if I get off this wall, by God, things are changing with a quickness. And 3 years from that day, that was Good Friday, 1992. And that's the day I was introduced to the 12-step program. That's the day that 3 years from that day, I bought this house for my then 2 children, my 2 sons and I to live in. Something that I always thought I needed a husband to do. And it's quite astounding for me to say that out loud at this point, because it's like there's half of me going, what are you talking about? No, and the other part going, well, yeah, I thought I did, you know? So that's been very much a part of my story too, is this one leg in very old-fashioned values and roles and expectations of me that I was brought up with, and one leg in, screw all that, I'm going to figure it out myself, what works for me. And the drama in the middle has been something else, but my life has never not been entertaining, I'll give you that. And nothing went the way I thought it would, and that's okay. That's great, actually.
Well, you know what? What you just described is life, and we all go through that, and it may be different, it will be different examples and different experiences, but another one of my guests who I just absolutely admire the heck out of, who by the time your episode airs, his May, is Bobby Herrera, who's the author of the book, The Gift of Struggle. And the key about struggle is we all have struggle, but what do we do with it, and what's the lesson? So yeah, a saying that I've heard recently is that good decisions come from experience, and experience comes from bad decisions. So there's kind of a progression there.
Yeah.
But being able to learn from what you've gone through, and to be able to face literally the fear of physical harm in the moment, but also face the fear of, can I really do this on my own, knowing deep down that you could, are brilliant lessons and things that we can all learn from. So I appreciate you very much being transparent and sharing that. Just one more thing, you mentioned the belief that you needed a man to do things for you. that's society. That's the kind of stuff that is poured and built into us for years, and that to a great degree is changing, albeit slowly. But it's people like you, Suzanne, that are helping that myth change. So that's another thing I appreciate. Do you feel of yourself in any way as a kind of a role model? Certainly not celebrity status, but do you...
Absolutely. Today, absolutely. And I have a 22-year-old daughter, and anyone with children understands how you get one of the blessings of parenthood is you, like it or not, get to watch parts of your life play out in front of you in your child. My daughter is very much like me in many ways, but very different in a few key ways that shape her experience differently. One of which is I didn't raise her with all those very old-fashioned role model expectations. I remember my mother telling me, actually overtly telling me, no, you can be anything you want to be, Suze, as long as you're willing to work hard and do what it takes. You can achieve whatever you set your mind to. And I believe that. And I've raised my daughter with that same attitude, which at the moment I would have to say appears to have overwhelmed the pants off of her. Twice overwhelmed, And the other thing, too, that's very different, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole because this could be a 16-hour conversation, but it's a very different world that my 22-year-old daughter is living in than the one I lived in when I was 22. And what I notice about all three of my children is that they are categorically much more anxious, much more all three of them have some form of anxiety disorder. And I used to think it was me. What's the common denominator? They were raised by me. Did I do that to them? No, I didn't. I may not have helped it very much, or a lot, whatever. But I didn't cause that, and I know that. But it is astounding to me how it shows up for her in ways that just don't compute for me. Like, she does not have that insatiable curiousness that I have. And she is persistent in very different ways than I am. And one of the things that is extremely important to me, no doubt fueled by the fact that I've raised these three pretty much by myself. And my parents are both gone now, and I feel a very cool breeze coming from the top of the family tree where I'm the one up there. And I think about when I leave this planet and leave the three of them behind, are they going to be able to say they knew who their mother was as a person, or did they just know their mom? It is incredibly important to me that they know me as a person too, because I want them to have the benefit of all the things that I have learned and all the trials and experiments and the data that doesn't work, where it's not hooked to who I am. I want them to have benefit of that. So they'll make their own mistakes. I'm watching that. But I don't want them to have to repeat the mistakes that I've made for the same reasons that I made them. And it's important to me to have a very open, very close, I want to be an advocate for my kids, but I also want them to be able, when I'm, old and feeble and hopefully my mind is still with me. I want them to be able to bring to me any issue they've got and say, Mom, let me tell you about this, what I'm up against here. Help me sort it out.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I am very, very open with my kids. I'm very, it is important to me to be a good role model for them. My boys, I want them to not only know how to treat women, but how to treat strong, driven women.
Mm-hmm.
And their wives are both strong, driven women, so they're going to need this information. I hope they're paying attention. And for my daughter, I want my biggest thing is I can't leave here until she's solidly on her feet, in her own life, as her own person.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that's not unique to me. I'm sure every parent wants that. But it is right here all the time with me right now. And, some of that's a function of the fact that she's 22 and she went out in the world and had to come back, and she's here at home now, and I'm having the fun of watching a 22-year-old female brain make decisions again. And it looks different on the outside than when it was me. Very entertaining, though. But
yeah, it is. And
keeping
again,
the lines
Suzanne,
of communication open and my judgment or their perception of my judgment out of it enough that they're willing to talk to me is the key for me. It's the number one goal.
That's a very important point, and thank you for making it. Sorry to have interrupted you. You talked about how, and this is common across everyone that I know in my life that is a parent, or has anyone that they care about, be it a child or not. We all want people that we care about to not make the same mistake we did. But we have to understand that some people only learn by making the mistake on their own.
Yeah.
And it took me quite a while to come to that conclusion of my self-awareness that, people have to make mistakes because that's how, again, bad decisions give us experience. So maybe you writing that memoir about yourself is important not just to your kids but to others. Which leads me to another topic. I want to respect your time. I know we're getting close to it. You have also added to your business arsenal a new arm called story marketing. Is that right? Story marketing.
Well, the name of the site is Marketing Via Story, but yeah, it's story.
Marketing via story. My apologies. I've got that written down right here and I didn't read it. Marketing via story. Give us a quick insight into that.
I have always been a word nerd deluxe. I love words. I love the nuance of language. I love how powerful language is. And as a web designer, when I got laid off from WorldCom, web design was the duh moment of, build websites for a living. You've been doing that. You can do that. So, and it's not, I don't need to downplay it or minimize it because building an effective website is a trick. And it requires a lot of different skills. And in the small business, like a really micro business, startups and solopreneurs, that's the arena that I've spent. Those are the clients I've spent most of my time serving over the last 20 years. That whole you have every job in the company thing also extends to your website has 100 jobs too. And it's far more than being, it can be far more than a digital brochure that you exist. It can be your most powerful marketing tool if you invest in it and let it. And so, along my journey of business building and learning how to be a business owner and deciding what services I'll offer and all of that. I haven't always written the copy for the websites I've built, but I've been the gatekeeper to make sure crappy copy doesn't get out on the web. And I've never, early on, like the first 15 years of this, I never really charged for that. I was so close to it, honestly, I didn't even realize that was a thing that you could call a service. Copywriting, well, I knew copywriting was a service, but I was also very busy with the web design aspect of it, but I always knew that I wanted to play with words more. And words and language and people, we're timeless. Marketing, somewhat. Technology, not at all. It changes so fast. And I am getting to the place where my interest in keeping up with technology is waning in favor of, when I think about, I don't expect to be able to retire, not because of finances, but because of what the hell would I do with myself all day long? I know I want to write when I'm officially retired, and I'm writing before that now. And copy is one of the ways that I can feed that need in me before I get to that place where I'm going to start calling myself a writer. Copy blended with a particular marketing philosophy and perspective. I think most people would call it what I'm thinking of, persuasive copy.
Mm-hmm. Compelling.
But yeah, words are the vehicle by which we create a lot of our lives, our outcomes, and how we talk about ourselves, our lives, our goals hugely impact the quality and eventual assessment, like our own assessment of, am I happy? Was I successful? All of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's hugely impactful, and that fascinates me. So the idea of being able to work with a person who has a business that they poured their blood, sweat, and tears and energy into, that means that level of, commitment to them, to be able to tease out of them who they really are, who they're really trying to serve, and how, and then get that translated to a vehicle, be it a website, social media, email marketing, whatever, wherever words show up, to be able to convey that to perfect strangers out there clicking open on their email in their inbox in an effective way that really connects. Man, just blows the top of my head off at thinking how awesome that is. I mean, God, it gets me tingly. So, strange little duck for sure, Bill. Really strange over here.
Yeah, but a lovable duck, and a duck I'm very grateful to have met and become friends with for all these many years and years to come, by the way.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate very much your time, your insights, your transparency, certainly your persistence, your sharing both personal and professional insights and experiences is fabulous. But if you put that all together and going back, starting from when you were 3, at this point, what is the point?
Oh, my little devilish self wants to leave you with something that's probably going to itch your brain for a while. The point is to feel as good about ourselves when we're by ourselves as possible. To me, that is the hallmark of a great life and a life well lived. To feel good about ourselves, who we are, who we're showing up as, and what we're doing on the way through. To feel as good about that as possible. Yeah. That's my
Wow.
goal.
Well, I am very happy that you shared that, and it's, again, as most things you've said, very powerful. And I see in you that you are doing that and progressing towards that all the time. And I applaud you for that. I also applaud you for not just your business, but for being what I see as a brilliant mother.
Thank
I've
you.
met your daughter. I've got experience through storytelling with your boys, and they're growing up fabulous. You don't undersell the tremendous positive impact you've had on those and everyone around you. Suzanne Bird-Harris, all of your contact information, your websites, and everything else will be in the show notes. I guarantee people will want to get in touch with you if you have a business or a not-for-profit or just a personal need for a website. Call this woman. She will make it happen so well for you. And she's also a ton of fun. And depending on how your business goes, she may hop in her car and drive over and plop on your couch. But
Everyone
that's
is
not
in
a promise,
danger of that.
which could be scary to some people. Suzanne, thank you for your time. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Bill. It was great to be here.
Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you like what you heard, please subscribe so you don't miss an episode. We can promise you'll gain value in every one. Rating and reviewing makes us more discoverable and helps others find out what's the point. And if you'd like to know more about Bill Ellis or contact him, please visit his website, www.brandingpillars.com. See you next time.